Well, all right. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, look. All right. So we are back up in here again. And it's been a minute. It's been a while. Yes, it has. Um, Let me say welcome back to you because it's certainly welcome back to me. I'm the one that's been missing. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute and then we'll move on into some other things. So, for those of you who know and those of you who don't, my mother passed away on the 9th of last month and December, and so we took a hiatus. I can't say it was a well-needed hiatus. However, no one wants to lose a loved one. However, that's unavoidable. Those things happen. And I lost Mama. My sister lost her mother. The nieces and nephews lost their auntie. The grandchildren lost their grandma. And the great grandkids lost their Gma. So we all lost someone. Little Michael lost his mama. Those of you who know little Michael, his granny was his mama, and he loved her dearly. And we're going to miss her. I'm going to sorely miss her. This is her I have around my neck. I had said this before that, when I got her rings, and when I put her rings on this chain and the first time I put them around my neck, I was actually crying when I did it, but I laughed immediately thereafter because I realized once again, Mama had her fingers around my neck. So it's one of those things. It's been a month, and I want to tell you that it hasn't been an easy month. Actually, I spent a lot of time right here in this chair, a lot of time working, a lot of time crying, a lot of time, dealing with her final affairs. Since the computers and everything, I'm basically sitting in the cockpit, the computers and everything right here, faxing off papers and emailing papers and getting papers back for her final affairs, and we're still not done. And then in the midst of all of that, Brother Carl. Those of you know, you hear me talk about Brother Carl all the time. Brother Carl, his wife died in the middle of all just days after Mama. So he and I have been going through this together, and I've been leaning on him. He's been leaning on me. And then Brother Ben called us out of Texas, and he's been consoling both of us because at one time he was our pastor for both of us. But we're all friends. We're all good friends in the midst of all of that. A very close-knit group, and I said this to someone else earlier, that I don't align myself with a lot of men. I certainly don't bring myself under the authority of a lot of men. I have to know your walk. I have to know your talk. I got to know who you are and what you're all about before I will submit to your authority, because I'm an alpha male. I walk hard on my own. I don't have to have you or a group of individuals to feel like I am someone. So I'm of that warrior class. I walk by myself, and I was born alone. I'll die alone. I'll fight alone if I have to. So, but these men have been my backbone. They have helped me up when I was going through various different things. They've been there for me, and we've been there for each other while we all have gone through things. And that's how you develop brotherhood. These are my brothers, most definitely. So, Brother Carl's wife, we just got over her, her memorial and funeral last Saturday. And I did a pictorial memorial for them. And it was easy for me to do that because it kept my mind off of what I was going through with Mama. So, I sat here and did that. This is about 50 minutes or more worth of, it was 87 pictures. I don't remember how many songs I put underneath to go through the 87 pictures with all the transitions and everything. But it was about 50 minutes or so, 45, 50 minutes or so. And that was enough to keep me busy so that I wasn't sitting here stressing over Mama, because I'm gonna tell you guys, I was going through it. Now, for those people who do know me, they knew I was going through it, but they left me alone enough to check on me periodically. Hey, how you doing? You okay? Blah blah blah. But no one really bothered me. And I've had various different things that people have done for me in the midst of it all. So I want to say thank you to all of them who reached out and made sure that I was okay. But I literally did not leave the house for over a month. Okay. And I can say it's over a month now because we're like on what, day 10. So I literally did not leave this house. There was times when I got up, I would come in here and I would eat and I would go back to bed and I would just lay down. There was times that I would never get out of my pajamas. I was piddle around the house and I never went out that front door. I was in the house. I went out only to go grocery shopping, get some groceries. Um, um, that was probably about it. I didn't even have to leave the house to pay a bill. I paid them all online. I went out the house one time. The co-workers, all of us got together, got invited to go have a meetup after the store closed. It was, hey, we're going to have a lunch or dinner or whatever it was this particular day. Why don't you come out and be with us? And so I got up, I put on my game face, and I went out because I believe when I suffer alone. When I grieve alone. I didn't go out there and sit around a table of 20, 30 people and just sit there, woe is me. But I certainly wasn't the most jovial cat that I normally am. And there's a couple of people who knew my mother, and the first thing I said to them, Mama passed, because mother attended their assembly, and those people from that assembly, not a one of them came and knocked on my door. Not a one of them went and even saw Mama when she was in the hospital. So I had to be emphatic about looking them straight in the face and want to say something more than, Mama passed. So I did that and got through that. Paid for my own lunch. Don't want anything from you, and went on about my business. So my business, that's the second order, is that I am starting a company. Actually had started a company, have always had a company. I'm sitting in one of my companies now. This is started out as Toyland Studios 3P Productions, and I've been running this for almost 30 years. At one point, I was fully commercial, sun up, sun down, music all day long, for a living. And then I didn't do that because I was going to school. I did do it, but I was going to school, so I couldn't be open when I was at school. So there were certain hours I had to run it. And then the studio was still open, and then we had the band going at that time. So I was doing the band at night and running the studio during the day and going to school. And then there was a time when the band stopped, I took a job, to fill up where the band had left off, and then was still running the studio, going to school. So there's always been that entrepreneur type thing going on. Now I have, and I've had for the last 3 years, I've had an Amazon store, but I haven't run my Amazon store. I haven't been able to run my Amazon store. I had it and was setting it up, but Mama fell ill, and Mama had been ill. Let me take that back. Mama had been ill, but I couldn't run with it the way I wanted to because Mama was ill and she was getting worse, but she was getting worse very slowly. And during that time, I had asked my sister to come and live with us. That would have freed me up because I had to work, to keep a roof over our head. Mama needed, someone to be in the house with her, and so that never happened. So I never got a chance to do the Amazon, but I did set it up. In the meantime, I was gathering inventory that I could, fill up my Amazon. And one part of my garage is loaded with stuff. So I never got a chance to put that inventory in, but that's sitting there. And then the store closed. When the store closed, I got a man, I got a crazy deal on some inkjet printer ink. And so what I did was I said, okay, so store's closing. It's going to free me up. Mama's in the hospital. I can have some time between running back and forth to her to go ahead and open up my Amazon store and get my ink and stuff in there. And in the midst of that, Mama passed away. And so everything kind of just spiraled down from there, because I was sitting here and I wasn't ready for that phone call. I was ready for the phone call. I'm not going to lie. I was ready for the phone call, but I did not expect the phone call then. So, matter of fact, I was just talking to one of the nurses just days before, because Mama had stopped eating even for me. She wouldn't even eat for me. She wouldn't eat for them. And they could normally coax her into eating by showing her the food that I brought her. She would eat it, but she was like, no. She just didn't want to eat. I think she was ready and she was tired. I don't know what was going on. I don't know. I got the phone call. I'll say that. I got the phone call, and the phone call said enough for me that Mama was through with money, and it was over with at that point. So I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. Anyway, so I did not leave the house. I was distraught. Everywhere I looked, everywhere I turned was my mother. And I wasn't losing my grip or anything, but I was losing my mother. I lost my mother. This is my mother. And Mama and I have been together for, um, well, now, let's see, for about 12, 13 years. Okay. Because she had called me years back. I used to talk on the phone with Mama every day. And then Mama told me one day we were on the phone talking, and she said, I can't live on my own anymore. I have to live. My doctor said I have to live with a friend or I got to live with a family member, but I can't be by myself any longer. And I was floored. I'm like, what? I can't go any longer. I have to be with someone now. So, I thought initially that she would end up with my sister, but, Mom and I had a conversation. She said some things to me, and it was quite obvious that she was going to have to come stay with me. So, be that as it may, Mama came. We've been together ever since. Now, it was hard. Mama wasn't easy to live with. She never has been easy to live with, even in our childhood. It was always difficult and rocky with Mama. But, nevertheless, that was Mama. I would rather, my mother, and some of you might even know how this goes with your parents. My mother, um, if I got a whipping, which bordered on a beating and, and sheer and total utter annihilation, um, I would still rather be with my mother. You follow me? You understand what I'm saying? Than to be anywhere else. I could be, I would rather be with my mother. My mother could literally, take me to the point where she's about to open up my head and take my brain out. I would still rather be with my mother. Because our parents would say, boy, I'll brain you, and that means I'll take your head off. But I would still rather be with my mother. My mother was could be violent at times, but as far as the world is concerned and what goes on out there, I would rather be with my mother. You can take your pick about who you want to be with. I have seen kids say, I'd rather be in a foster home. I'd rather be in a shelter home. And these are people who had never been in a foster home or a shelter home. These are children who don't know what abuse outside of your family is. If I got to deal with abuse, I'd rather do it at home. If I have to be abused by anyone, I'd rather be at home when that occurs. Because that's my family. Out in the world, if a person abuses a child, that child may not live through it. you know. But your parents and those that brought you in, they have a right. They say, I brought you in here, I'll take you out. Well, yeah, that's your parents. That's what they're gonna say. So it was difficult losing Mama, because we had been through some things together. We got history, and so it was difficult losing Mama. So I was going to say to you that when Mama graduated from nursing school, I was in those classes with her. We started around 6th or 7th grade. My sister wasn't around anymore. I think during that time she was with my grandparents after there was a family split. So, but when I got out of school, Mama would get off of work and she would go to school at night. And when I would get off out of school and I'd go home and she would come home from work and she'd be going to school, I'd get in the car and go with her. I didn't want to stay home by myself, so I get in the car and go with her. She was going to school, and I was right involved in her college courses. I read her books, I studied in her classes, just as if I was a student in the class and blew the teachers away. I was learning right along with her, so I learned a lot rolling around with Mama while she was doing her classes. Um, that is, circa 19. 72, maybe 73. Okay. I think I was maybe 12, maybe 13 years old when she started going to school. This graduation was this picture here. This was probably around 75. I wasn't with her then when she graduated. I was with my grandparents. I had been placed in a foster home and then had come. No, actually, I wasn't even in a foster home. I got taken out of a foster home and got put into a boys' home. And they took me out the boys' home and placed me with my grandparents. And I stayed with my grandparents for about a year. And when my grandfather decided to move, he sent me back. So I had a in and out sort of thing where the family at one point wanted me there. Then there's another time when they didn't want me there. And but that's another story. That was a long, long time ago. But this is Mama when she graduated from nursing school. And I wasn't there during those years, but I think our paths crossed a little while later on. So fast forward to the point where Mama is actually living with me. Now, I have a ton of other pictures, but I'm not going to go through those. I'm going to jump right through this real quick. Fast forward to when she's living with me. Now, this is 6 years into her living with me. Okay, 6 years in. And 6 or 7 years in living with me. And we're here in the house that I'm in now. Mama was working a puzzle. And I was crawling around on the floor taking pictures of baby Michael, the little puppy I got for her to be her little companion. Got lost for words there for a moment. I couldn't figure out what to say with that one. Her companion. Michael never knew how to be any other kind of dog other than the dog of a senior citizen. So he learned how to ride on her scooter. He learned how to walk beside her on her walker. He learned how to. All he knew was to be gentle because he had his human was a senior citizen, and so that was his Gma. He hung with her and he protected her with his little itty bitty life, and because he's a little guy and he loved his Gma. So Mama was working a puzzle right there. And I was crawling around on the floor taking pictures of Michael. And when she was looking at me, she looked at me to see what I was doing, and I rolled over on my back, and because I was on the floor with my DSLR, I had just got it, and I just rolled over and snapped an upshot of her just that way. And so she gave me that little sideways half smile that she's giving right there. And I went on about my business. She went on about her business. Days later, I wish I could show this to you, but I don't really have it available for you guys to see it. But days later, it was crazy because I just sent this video to my sister. But days later, Mama was actually sitting in that chair right there, and she had fallen asleep. So I'm sitting. Where's my DSLR? Oh, it's way over there in the corner. So I'm sitting. The chair was right here in front of me, and I was sitting in another recliner just over here. And I saw Mama twitching in her chair, and I'm like, what the heck is she doing, right? So I grabbed my camera when I realized that she was asleep, and she was actually having a conversation and walking and talking in her sleep, but she was sitting down. She hadn't gotten up. She was sitting in that chair right there in the picture you saw, and she was moving her hands and pointing and talking, and you see her lips moving, and she's shaking her head. And I mean, she was involved. Whatever it was, she was heavily involved. I'm like, I gotta film this, so I got the camera, and I started, recording it. I shot the whole thing, and I just recently sent it to my sister, and it wasn't funny. I wasn't doing it to be funny. I was actually doing it to show her. What were you dreaming about? So when she woke up, I asked her, what were you dreaming about? What's going on? She was like, what were you talking about? And so I showed her the video. I let her watch it, and then her memory clicked, and she remembered the dream, and she started to tell me what was going on in the dream. So that's a pretty cool memory for me. I have other videos which are not so nice, and I deleted those. I have videos when the police came in the house and tried to arrest me because Mama called them. I deleted those. I got to the point where I had to record everything because as Mama started to deteriorate, the police would come in here. Seeing up here, if an elder calls and they think it's elder abuse, it might not be. It could just be a person having a mental episode, but they'll come in here and put you in cuffs and cart you away, and you haven't done anything except try to keep your elder safe. So Mama was doing things like leaving burners on the stove, and she almost burnt the house down by running the garage door opener thing back and forth. Almost burnt the motor up. You could smell the smoke in the house. I went out there. The thing was hot. It was so hot it was about to ignite. I had to unplug it from the wall to keep her from using it, and so she would call the police for certain cases. And one time cops came up in here, guns drawn, handcuffs out, ready to take me down. And I'm like, look, this is my house. I have to protect my mother. I had to go so far as to show them crazy letters and notes that she used to write me and say, look, are we dealing with the ramblings of an old lady who's having some mental issues, or do you really think something's going on here? I mean, I had to go that far before they finally backed down. I had to have those videos in case anything happened to me. I had proof that, it was not elder abuse. So I would record everything. And I had people out of the state who knew in case I came up missing and nobody could contact me what happened, that they had access to those videos and those files, and they knew how to go to bat for me to get me out of harm's way, because mother's mental issues were causing her to do things, and was putting us both in jeopardy. So the police, when they come in, they don't know this in this county, especially with the elder abuse level, have been so high that they'll come in and they'll take you down, and you could be innocent as all get out, but they'll take you down. And me, dude had his hand on his gun. I wasn't trying to get shot, but at the same time, that's during the time when white cops were shooting black people, and I didn't want to be the one in Lakeport that be the one it happened to, because my mother was having an episode. So I had to protect myself in ways that I only knew how. So those videos I erased. So there's things, that I want to remember about my mother, and not those things. That's just one of those situations that we have to go through. When you guys would see me, and I'd always be out here talking about advocate for our seniors and take care of our seniors, that's the stuff I was talking about. So fast forward, Mama ends up in let's see. Let me do this again. Hold on here. Let me see what I got going on. Here. Trying to. There we go. Okay. So Mama ends up in the hospital. She had a major brain bleed and a stroke at the same time. And she kept saying to me, I had a stroke, I had a stroke, I had a stroke. She knew she had a stroke, but she didn't know the severity of it, and she couldn't I've never seen my mother afraid. She was weak and vulnerable, and she knew something happened, and she couldn't put her finger on it, and she was scared, and I'm glad that I was here, because I was comforting her, and I had my sister on the phone at the same time, and I was filming it so my sister could be I wasn't filming it, but I had her on Facebook Live, so she could be in the room seeing what's happening to our mother while the paramedics were here and the whole night. She was basically in the room, even though she was states away. She was on. She could see what was happening, and Mama was afraid, and I was very, very sad for my mom because I'd never seen her, that way. And when her lips started to quiver, I almost broke and cried, you guys, because she was trembling, and she was scared. I could see it in her face. She was afraid, and I was there, and I was telling my sister, see, you should be here. You're supposed to be here. When this happened to our mother, you're supposed to be here with me. I'm not supposed to be doing this by myself. And the hard part was because my mother, she was naked. I didn't want to see my mama naked, but I didn't have a choice. You know what I'm saying? I had to be there. And I told my sister, you're failing us because you're supposed to be here to help me with this. I'm not supposed to be doing this by myself with my mama naked. I'm not supposed to be. There are things that we're supposed to do, and one of them is not. And for me, especially me as a man, I'm not supposed to be looking upon my father's nakedness. Okay, that was my father's wife, my mother. I'm not supposed to be looking upon my father's nakedness at all. Period. Point blank. That is a sin. I'm not supposed to do it. I didn't have a choice. So, anyway, she ends up in the hospital, and this is after I had gotten her back. I told some of you guys what had happened to her, and I'm not going to show you those pictures. This is after I got her back and got her stable and cleaned her up. The condition that I got her back in was horrible, horrific, and I am going to be handling that. Now that she's passed, I'm going to be handling that against those hospitals. So this is after I got her back and cleaned her up, and when she woke up, and realized where she was, because she didn't even know who she was, where she was, what time it was, how it was, if ever it was, or the land it was. She had no idea what was. And so I had to take away all the medications that had her sedated, and wait for her to come out of the fog and the grog and bring her back to me. And I had my mother like this from May until December. She passed away this past December on the 9th. And so this was her sleeping, one of her more peaceful days. Some of you guys have seen the pictures when I was able to get her to eat a full plate of food, when she was very cognitive and very relevant and very there. And then she started to go away from me. As she started to go away from me, I started feeding her superfoods to wake up her brains and get the neural pathways firing inside of her head, and that worked for quite a long time, until she didn't want it to work anymore. And when she didn't want it to work anymore, she went away in another different perspective. So let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here I want to show. No, that was it. I'm not going to go any deeper than that because that's all that I want to. Let's see here. Let me do this. Excuse me. Pardon me. Let me do this. Ooh, I think I'm going to do that. There we go. So that's about as far as I want to go with that, because the rest of the pictures are private, and that'll just be for us and the family. But when I say to you, and I've said this to you, and I'll continue to say this throughout various other videos, advocate for your seniors. If you don't advocate for the seniors, trust me, when your butt gets in that position, no one's going to advocate for you. You better advocate for your mother. You better advocate for your brother. You better advocate for your dad. You better. Because when your turn comes, there's no one going to be there to advocate for you. You see, what goes around comes around. It's the law of reciprocity. It's you reap what you sow. What you put out in the universe, you get back. You put dirt out, you get dirt back. However you want to say it. It is what it is. Some people call it karma. I don't believe in Carmen. I don't know Carmen. But nevertheless, it is what it is. It is a universal law, and that's why they call it the law of reciprocity. Whatever your reward is, you get back what you put out. It's a biblical principle. However you want to say it, it is real, and you know it. Some people call it Murphy's Law. I don't even know who Murphy was and how he got a law, but nevertheless, that portion of it is real. So advocate for your seniors. Take care of them. You know, I made my mother a promise, and there was many times that I broke down and cried because I felt like I was failing, and I could not keep that promise. And people had to come and console me and tell me that I was doing a very good job. When I thought that I was doing the worst, that I wasn't keeping my end of the bargain, because I told my mother, I made her a promise, I'm never going to leave you, Mama. I don't care what you say to me. I don't care what you do to me. I'm never going to leave you hanging like this. And I didn't. And I felt like because I couldn't keep her at home, that I had failed, you know. And it was people who had to talk to me and tell me that it wasn't me who failed, you know. I had my pastors and my spiritual leaders and my other leaders who are around me tell me, no, you did the right thing. You did what you were supposed to do. There are people in your family who were supposed to have stepped up and they did not. That's not on you. Don't beat yourself up on that level. And it took me a long time, you know, to get to that portion of it. I've had people just recently. I had someone who's very near and dear to my heart reach out, and man, she did something. Man, you know what? Look at here. Let me do this. I got to put Mama back on the screen for a minute. Okay, I got to put Mama back on the screen for a minute, and I got to show you something because this just came. This just came in, and I wasn't even ready. Me myself, I wasn't even ready for this. So, let me show you this. Let me show you this. Hang on. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 15, 16. 15, 16. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure feels good to me. So, I'm gonna show you something here real quick, okay? Let me get back to me real fast. Here we go. So, you know, like I said, someone who is pretty near and dear to my heart did something for me, and I almost broke down and cried. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's very rare when a person can take me there. You know, I mean, I'll go there on a number of different occasions, a number of different ways. I'm so mad that I'm moved to tears, or I am so PO'd that I'm ready to tear the world apart and ready to fight. That, you know, I'm moved to tears. You know, this is, you know, or something, you know, that I've read in the scriptures just makes me weep, or, you know, looking at my mama in a position I've never seen her in before and I'm feeling helpless makes me weep. There's certain occasions that take me there, and this was one of them. A friend of mine, very near and dear to my heart, sent this to me in the mail. Now, some of you might know, let me do this. Okay, here we go. Some of you might know that this is on the front of my Facebook page. That's my mom and my dad, both of whom are not with us any longer. I think Mama was 17 years old in this picture, and Daddy was 20 something. Well, my friend took and put them on this cup, this coffee cup. It's a bigger cup than what I thought, and put my face on the cup as well. And she said, I thought that would be a nice keepsake. I thought I would give you a keepsake as opposed to some flowers. And, you know, I washed it and I put it away. I don't even want to use this. I don't want to use this. So then my cousin saw, because I did this also with the family photo. I did the same thing with the family photo. My cousin saw it, and he said, "You did that with the family picture, man. You did that on mouse pads and cups and hey, man, how can we get some of that?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll put them back up. I'll make them available again." But she did that, y'all, and that broke me. That broke me. So anyway, let me set this over here out of the way of everything. And so, in the midst of all of that, I'll say this. In the midst of all that, you guys, don't mind me. I got two cameras going, and I got something going over there and something going over here. I had to do something for myself and for us here in the community of where am I? Yeah, right. Yeah. Had to do something for myself and for those of us in the community of the music group that I roll with. And in the music group that I roll with, I teach. I teach. I teach. A couple different things. I teach music. I teach production. I spent 12 years at Motown Records. So as a songwriter, musician, mix engineer, directly under Stevie Wonder. And so I learned from some of the best. And what I do is I teach and teach people how to do this stuff, how to do this. And because it's not easy knowing how to do this. It certainly isn't. So it's a skill set that, someone has to take you there and teach you. And so things have become the way things are now. Things are done inside of a computer, and a lot of times it's not old school anymore. And so what happens is that we tend to work in the fashion that we're used to working in, the way that people have taught us how to work, right? So what happened is that I ended up getting a piece of a gear that would take me back to the old ways, okay? Because I wanted to work in the ways of old. And what happened was that I ended up getting this right here, okay? And this takes me back to the old ways because I'm able to work whatever I have in the box right there. I'm able to do it right here, right now. Most times when you're working, this piece of gear right here controls what's happening in that box right there. And that's not what we want. The old school guys who work with gear like this, we don't want this controlling that. We don't want that controlling this. We want to bring that here. We want to work right here because this is where the magic happens. You have to know what's going on right here. And so this, I have been talking myself out of one of these for a long time, because they've just now started making these boards work with those machines, and making those machines work with these boards in the fashion that we like to work. And so you can get a board like this, and when you move this fader right here, that fader on the screen moves. When you turn this knob right here, that knob on the screen moves. So what's happening is that you're not controlling the board at all. You're controlling that. And that has nothing to do with this, and this has everything to do with that. So when I'm done with this mix right here, see, this is old school. I'm going to share something with you. When I'm done with this mix right here, and I zero the board, most people don't even know what zero the board means. When I zero the board, you'll never get this mix back. And what you do is they get lazy, and they're like, we want a snapshot. So they got a button they can push, and all these faders will come right back to the same position they were whenever you bring that song up. But you see, a real mix engineer doesn't want that, because if a mix is what you're doing, you're mixing, and a mix is a mix every time you touch the board. It is not a mix if I can make this board remember exactly where I left all the faders and all the knobs. You have to listen and use your eyes and paint a picture inside your mind and sculpt like a painter. This is the canvas. These are the tools, the paintbrushes in your paint. It all happens right here, not in there. And so people have gotten lazy. And so one of my students earlier told me that he went to a symposium tonight and or last night or whatever, and he realized just how good his music was when he blew everybody else in the room away. One of my students. Okay. Been mentoring him and teaching him and staying with him for almost 20 years. And like I said to him, I couldn't tell you how good you were. Someone else had to show it to you. You know, all I can do is teach you the craft, you know, but when people hear your tracks, when they hear your music and they hear what you're doing, that's what's going to validate you. I can't tell you that. You know, you've got to go out there and let them tell you that. And when you walk in a room and you play your music and your music outshines everybody else 90 degrees to the west, and they sound like, you know, Pepe Le Pew, you know, and everything you touch is coming up like roses, that lets you know where you stand. And so this is what I do. And I take people, when I take someone under my wing and I teach you something, I'm showing you real stuff. I learned at Motown, a direct student of Stevie Wonder. So Stevie Wonder is blind as a bat. He can hear grass grow. Okay. So I would tell you some story. Okay, one time, here's a story for you. He came in, and this is when he put out the album, the song The Secret Life of Plants. Okay. So the song is The Secret Life of Plants. It's Flower Power is the name of the song. Okay, you can look it up for yourself. It's called Flower Power. So we're sitting in a production room, and he turns the song on, and the song is playing, and he said, "Can you hear that?" And everybody, we're all looking around the table like, "Hear what? What's he talking about?" And it's like, "Can you hear that? Can you hear?" Now, he heard it perfectly because he knew what he was listening for. We didn't have a clue. We did not have a clue what he was talking about. This man got up, came over to the board, pulled down all the faders. Okay, had to turn myself back up there. Pulled down all the faders. Now, I'm going to have to put that mix back in a minute, but that's okay. I can do that. Pulled down all the faders, and he said just like this, "Can you hear that?" He pushed one face and said, "Can you hear that?" And you know what we heard? We heard him walking through a forest with his feet. They had a microphone hanging at his feet, and he was walking and crunching leaves. And he had mixed that into the track, and it was in there so perfectly nobody could hear it. But once he pointed it out and showed it to us, we all heard it. I can't listen to that song now without hearing that. Every time it comes on, I hear it because I know what it is now. So in that one instance, that man taught me how to mix something so effectively, and I use it in everything that I do. So it's up to you to listen to something and see if you can hear, you know, what do they call it? There's a term for it when it's in the when they do it in movies. Easter eggs. Easter eggs when they do it in movies. Okay, so you know, those of us who do this and know how to do this, yeah, you can't give that skill to someone. You know, they actually have to sit at your feet and learn, and they have to learn to listen. So kudos to you, Mr. Michael Gray, on your big victory, your big win. I'm happy for you. I wish I could celebrate with you in Idaho, but you'll certainly be able to use, and you've got some of my tracks anyway. You can use some of my old stuff, and my old stuff will still help you blow that room away. So that's about it for me, family. I am going to raise on up out of here, and as a matter of fact, this is a little something that this is called In the Zone that we've been working on, and where is it? This thing's over. There it is. That's In the Zone, and every time I hear this, I think about some Raspberry Beret or something. But that's kind of where I am. You know, it's my zone. Is that live feel, that old school groove. So anyway, I'm gonna get on up out of here. I think I spent enough time bending your ear. I just want to say and let you guys know that like Brer Rabbit, I'm back. So I'm not 100%. Don't ever get that twisted. I'm not 100%. Look at here. You know, my mother died, so it's gonna take a while to get over that. I mean, yesterday was a hard day because yesterday, you know, well, the 9th was a hard day because it was the day Mama passed, and I was sitting there commemorating, and so it's gonna be like that from now on, I suppose. You know, I was watching Tomb Raider, and in that movie, Laura Croft, it was on a day she got sent off on that mission. It was the day her dad died, and she wanted to know how he died and why he died, and you know, the Illuminati was at the middle of it and the whole night, and she was standing out in the garden, and she was saying, "Dad, I miss you." And when I was watching the movie then, I said to myself, I don't want to feel that when my mother goes. I remember saying that. I don't want to feel that when my mother goes. But you know what? We're all going to feel it. You know, we're all going to feel it. And even though it was just a movie, that was very emotive, very emotional for me to watch that scene, because I knew that, you know, my mother was living with me then, and I knew that that day was going to come for me, and I just wasn't ready for that day to come. You know, and I had said that to Mama, I'm not ready for that day when it comes. And she said, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, Mama, I'm not ready for that day when it comes. I know it's going to come, but I'm not ready for that day when it comes." But it is what it is, family. So I'm gonna get on up out of here, y'all. Okay, and I'm gonna leave you with that. And I hope everything goes good for you. No matter what you do, stay in the light, stay in love, love one another, keep it tight.